Hello ladies and gentlemen, if it is your first time on this channel, welcome. I'm sure you are here because you are either considering investing, you have invested, or you are considering putting up a home for your family. So I am here to share with you tips on how you can be able to reduce your costs significantly and how you can be able to create a home or an investment that does not cost you an arm and a leg. Please, ladies and gentlemen, when we are investing in these ventures, it is important to have the mental clarity that we need. Let us not be emotional about it, but let us look critically on what we can be able to do to be able to achieve these goals. So one of the things is for you to be able to save significantly on your construction cost is to build small. Kindly build small. The bigger the house that you build, the more it is going to incur cost. Remember that the bigger the house that you build, the more cement you need, the more sand you need, the more stones or bricks or such that you need, the more timber you need, the more roofing that you need. So if you build a big footprint of a house, you're going to of course incur cost because of the size. Then you should be asking yourself, do you really need the space? How many hours do you spend in that day? Do you really need a 20 meter squared bedroom? So those are the questions that you should be asking yourself. So before you build, please consider, do you need all that space? So just build what is sufficient, build small, and you'll be able to save on costs. The other thing you need to do is to plan accordingly. Ladies and gentlemen, lack of planning leads to delay in supply of materials and lack of materials when they are needed. And this creates at moments when the people who are working on your project have to stall and stop, and you still have to pay them. So when you do not plan accordingly, especially on the supply of these materials, on labor, on things like that, you are going to lose costs because of the time that your people are not working on your project, and you still have to pay them. The other thing that you lose on is the fact that you cannot, when you have a very small or tight schedule in terms of delivery and things like that, sometimes it might rain, sometimes the people who are bringing something may delay. So you need to also plan accordingly and have times that are good so that they can be able to cover for the eventualities that you cannot be able to plan for. Remember, there are so many things that happen in construction sites, some that you do not forecast. So it is important to have a buffer of time so that you do not lose money because of lack of planning accordingly. So ladies and gentlemen, the other thing, it is important to also research adequately. Remember the new building techniques that are coming, that are much more cost effective, that reduce the cost of labor, that reduce the cost of materials, that reduce the amount of time that you spend on a project, that reduce the size of wall that you have, so you can be able to build a lot more livable space and not just wall space. So ladies and gentlemen, do your research according to your region. How much does it cost? When you do the research accordingly, not just build what your neighbor has done, but do the research and be able to effectively take the lowest cost possible specific to your region. So the other thing that I see, that people want to build elegant houses with many corners. Remember, the number of corners, the higher the number of corners, the higher the amount of money that you pay. The many corners that your money will hide in. Remember, the more corners you make, the more rounded, in fact, the more rounded the corners, the more the rounded corners are, the more rounded the windows, the more rounded the things are, the more sharp or less, the more less sharp the corners are, the more money you spend. Remember this, people who work on your project, the laborers, take more time when they have unique things to be able to do, or molds and things like that to be able to do. So they have more time, and that increases your cost of construction. So ladies and gentlemen, it is also important to consider that having labor that is not sufficiently trained or capable also loses you money. You lose a lot of money when you're trying to save money by having people who are underqualified or unqualified working on your project. They reduce the efficiency of the qualified people on your team, and every time that you have to do a correction, it costs you time, which costs you money. Remember also, when you're doing construction, sometimes the mistake leads to consumption of materials, which is additional cost on your behalf. So ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that is one of the ways that eats down your cost significantly. So the other thing is your roof. If your roof is so elegant with big gables and big corners and big designs and things like that, if it is more of an art of work than for functionality, then that is just how money is running out. The more artistic, the more money you spend. The more high a gable, the more money you spend. So reduce on how elegant or how hip your roof is. So make sure that you save on this cost, ladies and gentlemen. So the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, is on the doors and windows. The higher the number of doors that you have, the higher the number of windows that you have, the more costs you incur. It is cheaper to build a wall than to build a window. So make sure that you only have what you need. Do not have a house that has so many doors and so many windows. Sometimes the people who we work with sometimes advise us to have more windows and doors so that they can have more time doing the work and so that they can earn more. But ladies and gentlemen, remember, the more doors and the more windows that you have, the more costs is going to escalate. So ladies and gentlemen, it is also important to remember the level of finish determines a lot the costs. Actually, sometimes projects stall at the point of doing the finishing. Why? Because the more elegant the finishes, the more elegant the costs. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you go to buy these supplies, there's always a more expensive product. There's always a more elegant product. So the more you look for the elegant, the more you have to pay costs, additional costs for this. So ladies and gentlemen, the other thing that you need to do is safeguard against theft. Theft is one of the biggest causes of losses when you are doing construction. The theft of time. So when people say that they have worked and have not worked, they have not done any effort and they are still paid, and the theft of materials. So when you're on site, sometimes the cement disappears, sometimes the sand disappears, sometimes they do a collaboration with the supply of things in the hardware, and they say, we have supplied this amount of cement when they have not. Sometimes they build with less cement and less material so that they can be able to pocket the difference. So ladies and gentlemen, this can not only compromise on your costs, but also compromise on the quality of your build. So be careful to be able to reduce on the cost and ensure that the quality of your building is not affected. The other thing that ladies and gentlemen should consider is to design your own house. Remember, you can also design your own house and have it approved. Remember, you can also do a simple design and have it approved. As long as you have followed the guidelines that are needed, it might take longer, but it might incur less costs in the end. Remember, some architects charge you a percentage on the cost of construction. Sometimes that costs, especially for first-time builders, is exaggerated because you do not have the knowledge or the capacity to determine how much you need to pay. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen, because you might be forced to pay a percentage higher than you need, especially on the design. You can do the design on your own and seek clarity from somebody who is qualified to check on whether your design is capable or sufficient. They can even help you with the registration, and the cost is much, much lower. So the other thing that people lose their money on is the corridors. The bigger the corridors. Remember, corridors are unused spaces in most houses. So the more corridors that you have, or spaces between rooms, the more money you're spending. So if you do not need to have a corridor, please avoid it. Especially if it's unused corridors in a house. They incur cost and will not be usable in the finished house. So ladies and gentlemen, ensure that you reduce on these costs. So I hope that I have been helpful to you. I hope I have given you tips that can help you reduce the cost of your first house construction or construction of your investment properties. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to educate, to elevate, and to motivate you to become a better you. I hope that I have helped you secure your finances and build a house for your family or for investment. If you find this helpful, kindly subscribe to this channel, like these posts, and consider commenting. Help me know, help the viewers know any additional ways that can be able to reduce their costs. So thank you and enjoy your 2021 going forward.